We are officially live now, Regina, and it is so good to talk to you. Now, I'm calling you Regina, but I feel like I should be calling you Reggie because that is your nickname as well, right?
That is my nickname as well. And I think there's something really powerful about having two Reggies on the line.
Look at us. Well, I only get called my full government name, Reginald, either by the police or when I'm in trouble with my mother. So if at any point I overstep the mark, please scream the word Reginald and I will definitely sit to attention.
Okay. Right back at you. When I'm in trouble, my mother calls me by my first and my middle name, Regina Renee. So if I'm out of line, then Regina Renee.
Okay, well, Reggie's aside, I am so excited to talk to you because I am both a fan of the work that you have done, work that you historically began with in the 90s, right the way through to what is happening for you in your career now. And watching you win awards right the way through to watching you create as a director has been an incredible thing. So I kind of want to start at the beginning in a way, and we'll get to One Night in Miami, which I saw last night, and I'm so excited to talk to you about. You worked with John Singleton and so many others in the 90s in films that, in a way, defined an era and inspired so many of us, myself included. Was your journey to becoming a director inevitable? Did you always know that that was something you were going to do?
I did not always know, but I do believe that my journey to become a director was inevitable. It's funny because throughout this process of promoting One Night in Miami, there have been, I don't know if you've felt this, but sometimes memories come back when you're having certain experiences that remind you or either let you know, oh, wow, that happened in preparation for this moment. Right. While I didn't know that that's what was happening, my experiences with John, particularly in between Boys in the Hood and Poetic Justice. Poetic Justice, once I'd gotten the part, I reached out to John and had just so many questions. And I think my excitement and the depth of my questions made him open up or inspired him to open up his entire preparation process for me. And up until that time, I did not realize all that entails when you're a director to get to the moment that I'm actually spending with the director as the actor. So, you know, I was able to see his storyboards and him putting the storyboards together and watching some films with him that inspired him or that were inspiration for Poetic Justice. I was able to hear him having conversations, deciding what department heads would be coming on board for a couple positions he hadn't yet hired. So and I was just fascinated and blown away. But I can't say in that moment, I was feeling like, I'm gonna do this. Yes. My respect level for the director definitely, you know, moved up a notch or two.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely selfish here and share something with you that I probably shouldn't, because it's incredibly uncool. But I feel really, really lucky having this conversation with you right now because, much like yourself, I've been on screen for a long time. I've been on TV and been in some films and been on screen in front of camera for just over 30 years now. Mm-hmm. And I am at the precipice of releasing my first film as a writer-director. It is the weirdest and most exciting experience, which you're going through yourself. Now, you're ever so slightly ahead of me as an Oscar-winning director who steps up to make and release their first film. I am in the edit, and I'm a little way away from the actual release of my first feature. But with people now finally seeing your baby, people finally seeing your work, how does it actually feel?
Oh, the anxiety doesn't go away, Reggie. Right. So just be prepared. Just be prepared, and congratulations, because it's not an easy feat to get to the point, to get to the space of actor and people regarding your hyphenate directing hyphenate as something that's not a thing that you're doing out of vanity. It's something that you're doing because you truly have realized within yourself that there is a part of the storytelling process that you want to be involved in a much deeper level. You want to have more control of the aesthetic and the tone and the story that you're telling, and you're able to do that as a director. And I just think as actors, once we made that discovery on a conscious level, we were ready to actively pursue it. So one of the things that I've learned along the way, speaking to directors that are veterans, you know, because we're kind of freshmen in this right now, but that nervous energy that we feel, they still feel that, you know, to this day, even after having done, you know, several films. And I guess I really could understand that when they share that with me, because I don't know if you still feel this as an actor, but I still get nervous that first day of work. You know, you got to get all of the that nervous energy out. And I feel like if I didn't feel nervous on my first day or on a particularly big scene, then I should probably be even more nervous, because that means it doesn't mean a lot to me.
Yes, yes. I should take a little detour quickly here, because I've completely forgotten a bit of housekeeping that I should have done at the beginning of this conversation. And that is, for anybody that needs it or requires it, closed captioning is actually available. So all you have to do is click on the bottom of your screen to get some of that captions there for you. Okay. Now, when it comes to actors who have gone on to actually direct, there's a few that I've become obsessed with and really dug into their history as an actor and their history as a director. And someone who's around the same age as me, who's gone for a similar journey recently, is Jonah Hill. And in a lot of his interviews, he said the same thing over and over, which I really liked. And that was him comparing his time on set as an actor to film school, only his tutors were Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino. For you, you mentioned John Singleton, who you worked with a ton of times. Would you say that your tutors were your directors?
Well, absolutely. But I think even beyond that, once I really understood the process that takes place that doesn't involve me as an actor, it extended beyond that. You know, I was spending more time with the production designer and in the art department during times that I wasn't shooting, or I'm in my trailer or whatever, waiting for one of my scenes to come up. Just those conversations that I would have in depth with the prop master, all of those things I think were part of my education, you know, along the way. Deeper conversations with the DP, and conversations. I'll tell you what, not only, I would say, as in the conversations that I've had with other crew members outside of the director that were as impactful as the directors were with the camera operators.
Right. Okay. How important is legacy to you? Because you've got such an incredible body of work as an actor. Films like, you know, Ray, for instance, or even going right the way back to Jerry Maguire, or even something like Friday, where, you know, a film that inspired so many people I know who work in comedy. How important is that history to not just the work that you're doing today, but the work that you hope to go on to make?
I have to be completely honest. It's hard for me to think of legacy in relation to my career. You know, I just feel like I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm responding to what is calling out to me, what is speaking to me. And so I can think of legacy as I think of those careers or those pieces of art that I've watched, or many pieces of art from artists that I feel are just singular. Like, you know, they can do no wrong in my eyes. It's kind of hard to, for me at least, to look at myself like that. It's not that I'm thinking that I can't be received the same way to someone else, the way I receive some of those artists that are great to me. It's not that I think that it's not possible, but I'm just not in the space of considering it, you know?
Maybe I should reframe the question, because I think something that I learn from the people that I admire massively is their decision making, and you know, their choices sort of reflect their perspective in a lot of ways. So for you to be the lead in a show like Watchmen, for instance, that has such an important issue at its heart and is making quite an interesting statement in a really fresh way, it's quite daring. And it's, you know, I never thought that I would see you be a superhero type cop in a drama that spoke to race, that also had crazy elements that, you know, spoke to one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. That level of choice is a risk, but to take that risk and for it to pay off in the way that it has done, to me, is massively influential.
Understood. Okay, I understand what you're saying now. I think as life has moved forward for me, thank God I've acquired a little wisdom along the way. I've gotten to know myself better. Becoming a parent definitely just kind of cracks your heart wide open, and you can look at things beyond yourself, and you usually looking at things or making choices with your children. They're the first thing that you consider as you are making decisions.
Yeah.
So that being said, I feel like there was a point in my life that, and maybe somewhere around 2010, where I think it became very much a common theme that I was gravitating to projects that truly spoke to social issues that were going on, or at least holding a mirror up and just kind of forcing conversations that encouraged people to look at our reflection, specifically in America. And I don't think I was as aware that that was happening until Watchmen, and look back at everything from Southland to American Crime to Bill Street Could Talk to 7 Seconds, that all of these pieces of work these stories that I was a part of, these storytellers that I was collaborating with, our values and our feeling that it was necessary to tell these type of stories were aligning. And that is the space that I've been in, and the circumstances that have taken place in my life have led me to these choices. So I guess when you speak about legacy in that regard, it is absolutely important to me. I feel like, you know, this film One Night in Miami kind of speaks a bit to some of the themes that are going on within the film, kind of speak to that, you know, what does social responsibility look like for you as an artist? And I feel that, like I said, maybe 10 years ago, it started becoming more clear to me, my personal journey is when using my voice when it comes to social responsibility.
Yeah, it's interesting because David Lindelof and the team behind Watchmen did an incredible job dealing with something that is so fragile and difficult to get right. Just how much, or how difficult is it as an actor who now is directing, putting your trust in someone else? Because, you know, film is a director's medium and TV is becoming increasingly that as well. To direct now, knowing that you are in charge of the way that people receive the work at the end of the day, versus putting your trust in someone else, especially with something as complicated as Watchmen. How tough was that?
Well, I am interested in collaboration.
Right.
I'm really, when I think about projects that I had done early on in my career that did not feel as much like a collaborative process as the projects that I've done in the past, 10 plus years, I realized that the first time I had that experience, I think on a conscious level, was Southland. And within that experience, I remember actually saying, I really don't want to be a part of a project if it doesn't feel collaborative. If
Yes.
it doesn't feel like a space where everyone involved feels like they can take ownership in it in some way, that feel very secure in the idea that they are bringing something to the table to elevate that project. And so in that, having this experience or the beginning of the journey with One Night in Miami, it's making sure that once I was brought on board, I had to kind of audition for the role as well as director, and as they're auditioning me, I'm kind of auditioning them, to do they feel like a collaborative team?
Right.
And within that hour and a half of us meeting, I immediately felt like I can work with these people every day. I can see spending a huge part of my life with these people, and I know that they will be a great support system as we move forward and start to fill out the rest of the team, and supporting me in taking the time to find those additional collaborators to bring us to the finish line.
A huge influence for me in the way that he's gone about his work and his choices. And again, this is very much from afar, as I've never met or worked with the man, is Barry Jenkins. And
Mm.
Bill Street took you to an Oscar, and congratulations on that award. Um, this idea of tutors and working with people who are undeniably both talented and influential. I'd love to know what you learned from Barry Jenkins as a director and as the captain of the ship. He's gone from tiny movies right the way through to being an Oscar winner and also an incredibly influential figure himself. So how would you describe the learning experience from Barry Jenkins?
I would say, one of the big things that I left, uh, that I was able to take away from Bill Street, is that Barry's attention to detail in the nuanced, subtle moments, especially, and
Yes.
taking the time in those moments, and just being there for the experience, and then seeing the final product. It really helped me to understand how much those moments make the entire project sing. And while those moments are not the moments that are on page, on paper, those are the moments that Barry created that were the difference between, um, loving I'm having Sharon and Joe just a little bit more than you may have loved them if we were doing just only what was on the page. And so taking that away from that experience, going into One Night in Miami so soon after having that experience with Barry and already being a fan of his work. And I remember thinking, wow, okay, so this is why Moonlight was so just mind blowing, and why I felt like I was no longer in a movie theater. I was there. It's because of these subtleties. And so I was able to infuse moments like that into One Night in Miami. And I definitely, without a doubt, if I had not had that experience with Barry, I know I would not have been sensitive to the idea that moments like this are absolutely necessary to a story.
It would be remiss of us not to talk about One Night in Miami to some detail because it's still fresh in my mind. I saw it last night. I was heartbroken that I never got to see the play. So when I actually heard that you were actually going to collaborate with Ken Powers and make the feature film, I was so excited, especially as he was actually writing the feature film script as well. We've spoken a lot about collaboration. Can you talk me through that process of him adapting it and your involvement in that adaptation?
Yeah, well, first of all, Kemp Powers is just an exceptional talent. You and I do know that he is writing another play, but and he probably would say, "Do not ever say this again." But there is some. I read the screenplay before I read the play, and I was blown away by the screenplay. But before I met with him and the producers, I wanted to read the play so that I could see how much it changed. And it definitely changed a great deal. But those main themes were still there. But the thing that I felt about One Night in Miami is that the way Kemp's style of writing, I liken it in a way to August Wilson. It's the way people really talk.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, so I don't feel like there are some other playwrights out there that definitely move me, but there's just something about the way Kemp humanized these men, and it's the same thing that August Wilson does in his work. While it's not in August's work, it's not iconic figures. It's still, you know, the garbage man that has to take care of his family is an iconic figure, if you will, because it's a necessary person in the cycle of life so that we are able to you know, what would we do if we didn't have someone, you know, taking away our garbage? But that man still is a human. He is a man.
Yes.
That's something that I just felt kind of similar to me. I know Kemp would never take that compliment, but that's the feeling that I got when reading the play. And then just going into those first moments of us meeting each other and us spending hours on FaceTime together in preparation for the film, you know, I think Kemp really understood that I understood his intention, what he was writing, who he was writing for, who our audience is in this piece. And, you know, he reminded me the other day that the first time we got on the phone, I said to him, I love the screenplay, but I want to add some of the things that were in the play back into the screenplay. And that I think for him probably made him know, oh, she gets it. And
Yeah.
so for us, it was just, we were always in agreement. There was never really a moment that we disagreed on something. It was always moments of building on something.
Yeah. I mean, I recently watched a whole heap of interviews with Kemp because I was fascinated as to who was behind Soul, the Disney Pixar movie that was released, I believe it was on Christmas Day globally. And I, like a lot of people, watched it with my family, and there were bits that we really loved about, for particularly the depiction of Black people and Black families and culture. And in watching some of the interviews around the film, there was apparently a cultural consultancy group, I believe that's what they called it, where Kemp got a group of people together, not film people, just Black people who he knew, who he thought would be honest. And they gave honest feedback on the depiction in terms of the way that Black people looked on screen and
The
the
way
way
their hair moved.
absolutely. And that level of detail was something that was mind blowing for me as someone who is creating myself. And that level of detail, I imagine, for both of you on One Night in Miami must have been incredibly important because, you know, the cast on Soul were completely original creations. Whereas in One Night, you've got Malcolm X, you've got Muhammad Ali, you know, you've got people that are icons, Sam Cooke. Just how much detail did you go to in ensuring that you were bringing to screen versions of these men, or were they just that, versions?
We definitely went into deep detail because we are also capturing a moment in time. You know, this is not biography of all four of these men. This
Yes.
is a moment in time that is a snapshot of what brotherhood looks like. You know, of what vulnerability looks like for men, and how that vulnerability is actually the thing that makes them strong. It's a snapshot of Cassius, the young Cassius that we never get the opportunity to see, and
Fun.
back to back to subtle moments. Um, uh, we look at all four of those men almost as gods, as if they had no fears, if they had no emotions, if they had no doubts, if they had no concerns. And the reality is, there it is impossible to reach the level of success or the uh, level of to be as known as much as they were known, and in their respective fields, and not have not experienced those things. They're not cyborgs, they're men. And you know, there's just a couple little subtle moments throughout the film, whether there were things in direction or things in dialogue that while we're not trying to hit you over the head with it, there are these subtle moments that humanize them that much more. When Cassius, after the prayer, you know, looks at himself in the mirror, and it's just that one slight little moment where he could be possibly doubting himself, but Malcolm asks him, "Are you ready?" And he goes, "I'm ready." You know. But we all have those moments. We, you know, as we fail to realize that this night that actually happened, while it is a an imagination of what could have been discussed while they were together on that night, they were also young.
Yes.
They were so young, and there is something, in my opinion, very powerful about reminding the world that they were that young, and like you, they had concerns, and and while they celebrated each other, they also were, having a moment of fellowship,
Yeah. Well, I hear congratulations are in order. I believe that Kingsley, your Malcolm X, won himself a Gotham Award last night.
Yes, he did.
He did, and to be incredibly insular, I'm gonna double celebrate him because he's a young Brit playing an American icon or global icon. How did you find him, and where do you stand on this conversation about British actors playing American icons? Because the conversation has already begun with Daniel Kaluuya's latest project,
Yeah.
and projects that he's had in the past. So I have to ask the question, with someone like Kingsley Ben-Adir doing such an incredible job and now winning an award for the job that he's done, where do you stand? I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Yes. Well, I am so excited that he won. Well deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like the best actor for the role should play the part. The actor that truly understands the role that they're playing. Kingsley and I had, when I first saw his audition, I was like, oh, okay, and of course I had my own moments of thinking, how are people going to, because as you said, this conversation is going on and it's been going on. But up until that moment, if I was moved by a performance, I really don't care where a person's from, because as an audience member, to me, they truly understood what they were doing, what they were embodying. And I had, after Kingsley's first audition, I wanted to give him some notes. And I wanted to just talk to him and kind of get to know him and get to know what his relationship was to Malcolm. And he said all the things that I needed to hear him say. And I think it's unfortunate that this is where we are. One of the things that I truly understood or discovered throughout this process of One Night in Miami, is that upon first receiving this and reading it, I thought, wow, Kemp, this is just a love letter to the Black man's experience in America. But then taking a step back and really taking in marginalized people across the world, there are feelings and experiences that Black people in the UK, in Brazil, feel that are the same as in America. While yes, the history of how a country came to be may be different, but the marginalization of a Black man is the same. Colorism is the same in all of those places. A Black man getting on the elevator full of white people and him having to put on a talisman to make them more comfortable just so he can have a less stressful day is a very real thing, whether that Black man is in America, in the UK, or anywhere else. So again, Kingsley was the best actor for that role.
Great.
Eli was the best actor for that role. Sure, neither one of them are American, but can they relate to the experience and the pain felt by a Black person for being disregarded for just because of the color of your skin? Absolutely, they can. Yeah. Can they take it upon themselves to make sure they educate themselves on how that is the ways it's specific to America and the history of how Black Americans have built this country. It was built on the bodies of Black Americans. They can definitely educate themselves on that, and they did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change my choices for anyone. And one of the things that was really empowering for me is, reaching out to Ava DuVernay, as I was about to cast Kingsley, and just kind of, wanted to hear from her, how I should navigate the narrative, because I know that's going to come my way. And she was like, is he the best person for the role?
Yeah.
And I said, yes. She said, there's nothing to navigate.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Your answer couldn't have been more perfect in so many ways, because there are so many of us, particularly on this side of the pond, that feel the same way. And I'm so glad that Kingsley is getting the accolades that he deserves, because he's phenomenal in it. And before we get to audience questions, I have one more question for you, actually, about the cast. And that is Leslie Odom Jr. When he came on screen as Sam Cooke, and then he sang for the first time on screen, I literally felt myself getting closer and closer to the screen, like, he is miming way too well for this to be a mime. And then I realized, oh my God, that's the guy from Hamilton. He's probably doing this for real in the moment, and he's really, really singing. And then I thought, it sort of occurred to me 3/4 of the way through the movie, Change Gone Come is going to come. That's what we're leading to. And to end on that song was a real goosebump moment for me. Yes. Especially with the way that you got there with the Bob Dylan record, etc. It was just such a beautiful climax in so many ways, and such a fitting record. Did you always know that that song was going to be performed, and did it have to be performed by a performer? Because to find somebody who can sing Sam Cooke that well, but also act to the standard that all four of your leads are performing at, that must have been an incredibly difficult thing during casting.
Well, here's the thing. There never was a moment that I thought that it was going to work out casting for this particular film. Yes. As Sam Cooke that couldn't sing. And because it was always the intention to record these moments live. Now we did. A lot of people don't realize that those moments in the film that are the needle drops where Malcolm is playing Sam's music, that is also Leslie singing. And yes, we recorded that earlier. And even though it's just those little bits, that was recorded earlier. And anyone that knows Leslie Odom Jr.'s voice knows that he really had to go in another range to emulate Sam Cooke. It was quite beautiful to watch. I knew that it was a risky thing to want to record those things live, but I knew how powerful it would be if they were recorded live. So we went through great lengths, and we used some of these moments to spend more money in the sound by actually purchasing microphones that were of the period, so that we would have a really specific sound when it came to the Johnny Carson scene and when it came to the Copacabana. That was really, really important. And it's unconventional to do that. Usually when you see these films, you could tell it may be a person's voice, but it was pre-recorded and they're lip syncing to the recording of their voice. Yeah. And Leslie was totally on board with not doing that. Sure, we would do some, and he did pre-record everything, and we would play those, the versions of the pre-record when we'd be shooting the audience, or when we'd be, rolling cameras not on him to preserve his voice. But what you see is Leslie's recording live in the moment.
I have to say, I'm so glad that you made that choice, because it elevates those sequences so much, because we've all seen movies with musical moments where you're taken out of the film when you realize that somebody is miming or not doing it for real. Like, and this isn't me blowing smoke by any means, but you know, in those sequences in Ray, for instance, when you guys are singing and there's that vein on your neck, it's like, okay, you are really singing in the moment. This is really, really happening. So as an audience member, thank you for making that choice, because it didn't take me out of the movie and it kept me there and it made it hit even more. Okay, we've got all of 11 minutes before our conversation ends. So in that 11 minutes, I'm going to try and get through some of these questions that have come through, and there's quite a few of them. So we should probably, I'll ask the questions as quickly as I can. And if you can, please give me as truncated an answer as you can so we can get through as many of them.
Yes.
If that's okay, Reggie. Is that all right, Reggie?
Yes, Reggie, we're going to try. We're going to get through it together.
Okay. All right. Here we go. This is a very short question, but it could be a long answer, but I'm sure that there's something that will come to mind, because I'm sure this isn't the first time you've been asked this. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? I don't know who's setting that question, but it's a question from one of our viewers.
Well, that's always a tough question, because I feel like I'm always getting great advice and applying it all the time. So I go to the first piece of advice that I was given that I still use to this day. And it was from my mother, and she called it the 7 Ps. And it's proper prior preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Wow. I like the marker in the piss. I've heard that before, but I've never heard it with the piss through in.
Yeah.
I'm glad I said it that way. Brilliant. Let's move on. Another question for you from one of the viewers. It's pertaining to casting. And the question essentially is, what is it that you look for in an actor when you cast them?
I'm looking for someone that truly is, gosh, I do feel a lot that a role chooses an actor. And so when that person comes in, it's almost, and sometimes it can be a few persons. It's just clear that they have a connection to the character in a way that they've been able to find a bit of themselves within that role, so that the performance feels like it's coming from a place, a real place. Right. And I think that that's what we do as actors. We find a bit of ourselves in there so that we can truly keep a performance grounded and rooted in truth. So I'm looking for a performance that's grounded, that's rooted in truth.
Okay. I actually have a name for this next question. It's from Paul Westwood. And Paul is asking the question, can you cite a person or persons specifically who you think has helped you on your journey to get to where you are today? Is there any one person or moment maybe where you were helped that you can share with us?
Oh, Paul, there is not one person. There are several people there. I don't think anyone who has had success has gotten there just because of one person. Most of us, it starts with our mama. You know, that's the biggest fan, that biggest encourager. But off the top of my head, I would say Paris Barkley, director that was a huge supporter of mine, and just really, when the first video that I directed, he watched it with the volume down, and he, there were just things that he said that felt like it gave me this permission to speak about myself as I am, as though I'm a director. And just his, and there are several people like this, but he's just one that came to mind. His just reminding me to, as I continue on in this art, to continue to nurture those artistic things within me that are hobbies, like drawing and photography. that all of those things, you can employ those things in what you're doing as a director and what you're doing as an actor. So I feel like that was invaluable.
Okay, I'm going to be super selfish here and crowbar in a question for me that hopefully will speak to some of the people watching, because I know that there's a lot of writers and directors watching. And as somebody who is a first-time writer, director, as somebody who's due to release my first feature film this year, I have to ask you, what would your advice be as somebody who's been in the business for so long and taken on board all of these skills from all the different things that you've done leading up to this point where you're finally making or about to release your first feature film? What would the best advice be to somebody like myself and just some of the people watching?
Yeah, it's the same advice that I give all the time, is to just not fall into the trap of comparing yourself or your journey to someone else's. I think we so often get caught up in thinking that, oh, I didn't do this, or I didn't go to this school, or I never saw that film, or that piece of work is not my favorite. And it seems as though every director that has an interview talks about that one piece of work. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful or great at your craft just because you don't respond to it the same way. I mean, that's kind of the point. That's kind of the reason why you are you, because you're not someone else. It's those attributes that some of them were God-given, some of them were picked up along the way because of your circumstances, but those are the things that make you you and make you have a signature to your storytelling. So I would just say, don't fall into that trap of comparison.
Okay, that's a great answer. And we've still got 5 minutes left. Amazing. So we can do some more questions. And I've been selfish at the same time. Look at this, winning. I actually wanted to ask you earlier on when we spoke about you winning your Emmy Award for Watchmen in one of the strangest ceremonies I'm sure you've ever been to. You were actually wearing a Breonna Taylor t-shirt. And somebody has asked the question, with everything happening in the world right now, are you having any inspiration for projects in the future, or are you taking it easier? Now, the reason I say those two things together is that it's hard to not be affected by what is happening in the world, particularly if you care about your craft. And I can't help but have what is happening and what has happened over the last 12 to 24 months influence my work. Would you say it's the same thing for you? And how important is it for you to both see those influences out and not be silenced in allowing those things to influence your work, but also to publicly make statements about your beliefs, much like you did at the Emmy Awards wearing that t-shirt?
I would say yes, and I definitely am developing things that are lighter in subject matter. But yes, quite a few of the other projects that I'm developing still are reflective. They are reflections of what is going on in our world. So that is kind of something I can't help but to do. But I am a fun person. I do laugh. I do like to talk shit. I mean, that is other things that maybe, if you look at what I've done in the past, again, 10 years, may seem as though everything that I do is with the intention of having a particular message. But I would say that there are things that I have in development that the thing that may be different about them is that there's stories being told with a person of color at the center, but it may not necessarily the story itself may not rest on the fact of a race or anything like that. I think I know this is a much longer answer, but Soul really inspired me because it reminded me that we can have stories that are about things that the soul is a universal thing. It's not specific to a certain color or a certain culture. But we can still tell a story like that and we be at the lead. You know, we're seeing all of these cultural things in the Black community through Soul, but that's not what the film was about. It wasn't about being Black, you know. It was about your soul and what you do with your soul. And I feel like that's quite powerful. I think that's equally as powerful. I think they both are necessary.
Yeah. Regina, I have to say thank you so much on behalf of all of the people that can't say thank you to you right now, who are watching this live. I've been a fan of your work for as long as I can remember. And in the early days of knowing that I wanted to make film, the films that I obsessed over by John Singleton, you were in pretty much all of them. So it's genuinely a pleasure talking to you today. And I'm really excited for everybody to see One Night in Miami, which as a debut feature film is phenomenal. And I'm so excited for what may come from this film. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reggie. And thank you, everybody that's tuned in. It does mean a lot that you're interested in what I may have to say. You know, I hopefully I've said something that inspires someone. And just at the end of the day, just do you. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm pretty good.
On that note, thank you so much, and goodbye. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.